If you have $500,000 sitting in a bank account or CDs or some type of fixed income investment, you're probably earning about 4% right now. Thing is, you're losing $55,000 per year to what I'm about to show you. So right now I'm earning about 15% on what I call digital dollars. Completely liquid, no lockups, and I could pull my money out at any time that I want. Here's a vault over on Euler Finance doing a 15% APY on USDC right now. Now this is live data, and the thing is they have better vaults as well. Like this one's doing 27%, this one's doing 31%. But these ones are going to fluctuate more because the utilization is higher. There's more borrows here. And if that sounds confusing, it's actually super simple. I'll dive into what that actually means in just a second. But over on this platform called Fluid, you can get about 11% APR on USDT. Once again, people are just simply borrowing your assets. On Camino, you can get about 11% on this conservative USDC strategy. And then they also have other USDC strategies like this one over here that's a balanced approach, and it does about a 12% return. Meanwhile, your bank is paying you 4%, and that's if you're lucky. And inflation is eating away at 67% of your purchasing power every single year. You're literally getting poorer by playing it safe. Now here's the thing, while these banks are FDIC insured, it's only up to $250,000. And if you're like me, you probably have the problem of just simply having way too much money in order to get these yields basically. So now all of a sudden you have another $250,000 or another $500K or even more than that that's exposed, that's not FDIC insured. So if you're going to take that risk, you might as well get compensated much better for it. And look, I get it. You've worked hard for your money. The idea of moving $500,000 into crypto probably sounds terrifying. But here's what wealthy investors understand that most people don't. The real risk isn't in DeFi. It's in letting inflation destroy your wealth while banks use your money to earn those exact same returns, but keep all the profits and pay you a measly 4% per year. The thing is, these are not volatile cryptocurrencies. These are stablecoins, digital dollars that are backed one-to-one by real United States dollars. Same value, way better returns, and there is collateral in the banking system. So once again, let me dive into Euler to start off with and show you the safest options first, and we'll ramp up the risk as we go, and we'll talk about how this model works. It's very, very simple. Now they can park Ethereum, they could park Bitcoin, they could park Aave token, they could park any cryptocurrency that's listed on this platform, right? And ultimately, people are able to borrow those cryptocurrencies. Now, they can also park stuff like USDT, USDC, and other derivatives of the United States dollar. So when there's people lending out Ethereum, and then of course there's people lending out USDC, all of a sudden, you could run a strategy where you lend out your Ethereum and you borrow USDC. That's what a lot of people are doing. They're using it for leverage. So they can take that USDC, they could go and throw it in their bank account, or they could take that USDC and they can go and buy more Ethereum. That's just one strategy, and that's something that I personally do in my portfolio. I'm a consumer of the same exact system. You can see that over here. I have $105,000 of crypto that I'm lending out, or otherwise known as collateralizing basically, and I'm borrowing $35,000 of USDC right now. It's a pretty simple concept. I'm borrowing from the people that put their USDC up as collateral, and I am able to do that because I have other assets up as collateral. And of course, I am paying a lending rate to those people that are lending out their USDC. I'm paying that APY. Now my borrow, it just stacks over time. So if I borrowed 35 grand, this would start at say 35 grand, then to go up a little bit each and every single day. There's no fixed term on this. Of course, there's no fixed rate either. These rates fluctuate. Now the thing is, the risk obviously when lending out is what if you can't get your money out? That's because too many people are borrowing. So if we go back to this Euler example, this has a 98% utilization, which means only about 1.3% or so can be withdrawn from this right now. Otherwise, you're stuck in this vault until people repay. But in that instance, if we take a look at this APY, the supply APY is 31%. And if we look at the borrow APY right now, it's 34.95%. So people are incentivized to go and actually repay their loan here because they're having to pay a ton of money right now. It also incentivizes people like you and me to come in here and capitalize on this high supply APY while it's still high. So once again, to recap it, people have to put assets up as collateral. Those assets have a value, and ultimately, once they put assets up as collateral, they can borrow other assets or the same assets if they wish to do so. And of course, there's an interest rate. Majority of that interest rate is being paid over to the people lending out assets. Now, what I'm referring to here is just simply lending out assets. If we go over to Euler and we look at one of the vaults that's doing a good return, that has relatively decent utilization, meaning that it's not just inflated right now, but it's going to balance out to this. It's this Frontier Yalla vault of USDC, where you are essentially generating a 15% supply APY right here. Now, there's $4.2 million of assets within this vault right now. That's just one of them. Again, as I said, we can capitalize on some of these other higher yield ones right now if we want to, but those are going to fluctuate constantly. Another vault over here, we have this Euler yield, 15% APY on USDE. Remember, this has a high utilization rate, meaning that it's most likely going to be going down within a couple days. Taking a look over at these other USDC vaults, these ones have pretty decent utilization rates and range anywhere from 14 to 15% right here. Fluid is the exact same model. You lend out assets, you're able to borrow as well. So taking a look at some of the vaults on here on the Polygon network in specific, you can do about 11% APR on USDT. Diving into this new chain that just launched, and it currently has $524 million lent on it right now. You can also do about 11.5% on USDT as well. Now, the beauty here is there's no lockup period. Your money isn't frozen for months or years. You can withdraw at any given time, just like a savings account, but with real returns. And the interest rate model is pretty simple. It just accumulates more and more interest by the day, basically. And that interest is just added to your borrow. So your borrow just constantly increases over time. And you have to put assets up in order to be able to borrow. You can't just take out a borrow and, of course, not be able to pay it back, because you're taking out a borrow, and worst case, you don't pay back your borrow, you're not getting your initial assets back, basically. So that means as a lender, we are protected, and there are liquidation mechanisms in place to sell stuff like Ethereum and Bitcoin for people that ultimately borrow too much against their capital and end up having their capital drop a specific value to the point where their borrow is nearly exceeding their overall loan. There are protection mechanisms in place. Now, managing a large portfolio across multiple platforms requires a systematic approach to maximize returns while minimizing risk. And that's what we help our clients at Builder Wealth do. We take a risk-averse approach and understand that, hey, we're going from 4% in the banks to 15% in stablecoins. We're not trying to go to 30% and get greedy and then end up getting exploited and lose our shirt, right? With our clients at Builder Wealth, we're taking conservative approaches because we're working with 500K, a million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, so on and so forth. We need to focus on scalability in that instance, not the highest returns. Now, to show you a couple more options, these are also using lending markets, but actually taking advantage of something called arbitrage. So what that means is essentially sometimes you can lend out assets and ultimately get a higher rate for lending out one asset than you can for borrowing another asset. So when we take a look at the instance of Syrup USDC and USDG, which by the way, Syrup USDC does about 7% basically per year. You can borrow USDG for 3.5%. So there's a bit of a spread right there. If you can lend out USD for 7% and then borrow USD for 3.5%, you could theoretically just take that USD that you borrowed, lend it out again, and repeat the process. This is what we call looping. Now again, we're not doing direct US dollars, we're doing stablecoins that have their value derived from US dollars and are collateralized by US dollars. But ultimately, by running a system like this, we are able to leverage up on that spread because we're collateralizing Syrup USDC and we're earning 7%, then we're borrowing USDG for 3.5%, then converting that USDG to Syrup USDC and repeating the process until we're leveraged up. Now that's exactly what we can do through the multiply function. The platforms are smart. They allow you to basically just do this in a couple clicks instead of just having to manually do this over and over and over again. So if we were to allocate, let's just say 150,000 United States dollars into this strategy where we're lending out Syrup USDC for 7%, borrowing USDG for 3.5%, and ultimately we are just leveraging up 5x, which basically means that 150K, it's multiplied by 5. We have that leveraged exposure. We're doing an APY of 20% per year on US dollars right there. That's pretty dang good. And again, you can run these multiply strategies on other platforms as well. Here's a syrup USDC loop where you can do about 15% per year on it. And if you don't want to deal with all this DeFi stuff and having to use these platforms natively, you can dive into positions like XUSD where you do 18% a year and they ultimately do everything for you, basically. Simple as that. And XUSD is actually one of the tokens that's available over on Pendle where you can get a fixed yield, meaning that we can lock in that fixed rate for a period of time. For the next 79 days, we could lock in 17% per year on XUSD by using a yield trading platform like Pendle Finance. And that right there is going to give you guaranteed returns just like a CD normally would, basically. So look, I've shown you exactly where to find these yields, a couple of them at least, and how to allocate your capital. But here's the reality. Most people that watch this will think that sounds good, and then they will never do anything. Or worse, they'll try to figure it out alone, make expensive mistakes, use the wrong platforms, have poor diversification, and not have any risk management in their portfolio and ultimately lose money. I lost $30,000 in a safe, stable strategy that was doing 20% per year a couple years ago. It was called UST from Terra Luna. My $30,000 went down 99% basically over the course of 48 hours. So I don't say that to scare you. I'm just saying that because there's risk associated with this and you need to make sure that you are picking your players strategically and make sure that you are actually putting your hard-earned capital in safe strategies, and you need to do your own due diligence. And if you don't know how to do that, or you want to work with a trusted partner, that's what we do at Builder Wealth. We do the due diligence for you. We analyze what's working for all DeFi investors right now. We tell you what our clients are currently doing right now to earn about 15% per year on stablecoins. But not only do we partner with you, we teach you how to do it so that way you don't have to be partnered with us forever and you can become self-reliant in the DeFi space. So if you're potentially interested in working with a trusted partner in this industry, you can hit the link at the top description, speak with my team, and we can see if it's a good fit. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, notifications turned on, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.